Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Louisiana Focus. I'm Keith Simon.
And I'm Vicky Jacquet. The local diocese takes action concerning the sex scandal fallout.
Plus, parking woes at UL causes angst among students.
And we meet with a thespian with a passion to revitalize his home theater. These stories and more next on Louisiana Focus.
Back in August, a grand jury report out of Pennsylvania revealed a major sexual abuse cover-up by Catholic clergy. In response to the fallout, American bishops from all over the country are taking action to ensure due process for those affected. Here at home, Douglas Desautels, Bishop of the Lafayette Diocese, is taking a lead role in showing transparency within the church. Trey Guidry has more.
It's a traditional image and sound you see in church, praying. And for most, it's a personal connection with God. And these days, Catholics have to endure chaos in their faith because of the latest sex scandal cover-up. Here in Lafayette, Bishop Douglas Desautels has considered releasing the names of priests credibly accused of sexual abuse within the diocese. This would ensure justice and bring consolation to victims.
But what has been true in regard to his response in our diocese to a number of situations is that he has been very assertive and aggressive in terms of seeking the truth and exposing corruption and exposing issues that need to be addressed legally and people who should not be in ministry.
This is Father Paul Bienvenu, pastor of St. Alphonsus Catholic Church in Maurice. And he says Bishop Desautels has invited a real sense of confidence by taking action.
The way that he is taking care of these issues by intentionally bringing in law enforcement, intentionally giving all information that he has to law enforcement and allowing law enforcement to handle these issues. This is what the man is about. This is what he's done. And this certainly engenders a great sense of confidence.
While confidence in Bishop Desautels is high, there still remains the issue of how parishioners view the scandal.
While church attendance has not been affected, what has been affected very profoundly is the morale of the people.
And as Catholics in this diocese share with us, releasing names will heal the morale in the community.
I think he should, personally, just because I think it's causing a lot of stigma and it's causing a lot of faith crisis right now, and then a lot of people are just really putting the Catholic Church under fire. I think it has caused a lot of crisis with people in Lafayette, but especially here at Wisdom, a lot of people are really strong in their faith, so they're not really questioning their faith, especially since we don't believe that the Catholic Church is built on a priest, but instead the Catholic Church is built on Christ and the Eucharist.
Yes, it is necessary, just because even though you are a priest or you are a person of holy orders or anything like that, that your name should not be, not put out because any other sexual offender's name would be put in.
Bishop Desautels has taken action by getting law enforcement involved. And in just the past week, he has released the name of former Monsignor Roby Robichaud of sexual abuse. While the Catholic Church and victims are still suffering, the church in Lafayette looks bright under the leadership of Bishop Desautels. With Louisiana Focus, I'm Trey Guidry with photojournalist Jarek Provost.
According to the National Human Trafficking Hotline, there are 107 reports of human trafficking in Louisiana this year alone. This statistic is enough to concern local people, but as our Erica Johnson reports, there are a lot more of misconceptions about human trafficking if you only believe your news feed.
We've seen the stories on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Students all over UL have been worried about one issue: human trafficking.
I don't know, it makes me feel like really uncomfortable to do things alone, like especially at night. I definitely make sure like I'm always with friends or just always around somebody, or I make sure people know where I'm at late at night especially.
Jasmine Crockett, a 21-year-old senior at UL, says she first came across the human trafficking stories through Twitter. Jasmine believes the recent stories to be true.
I don't understand why people would lie about that. Or like, I think when it comes to women, a lot of times a lot of people want to discredit what they say. So.
But UL criminal justice professor Michelle Janace has a different perspective.
So we get a lot of myths about what happens when people go missing, and also a lot of disparity in coverage. So some cases receive more coverage than others.
Professor Janace says one of the most persistent myths populating social media is suspicious activity inside Walmart.
There are some misconceptions about human trafficking. This belief that human traffickers, these evil people, are coming to Walmart or our neighborhoods and they're taking our babies from our arms, and that's just not true.
When we reached out to Walmart's headquarters, we received no response. But one myth that Janace says is real is the runaway population.
Our runaways are especially vulnerable because they're usually coming from abuse or dysfunction in the home. That's why they're running away. They're not running away because their parents love them and they're having a great time. The typical runaway is running from abuse, and they're ending up unsupervised on the streets or with friends and friends of friends, and it creates a dynamic in which people can and do take advantage of them.
Based on her research, Professor Michelle Janace has not came across any documented cases where the abducted victim was from a middle-class home and forced into labor or human trafficking. Middle-class victims are at more risk than being abducted by someone they know than a stranger.
We are all more likely to be murdered by someone we know and love. Our risk of victimization from sexual assaults are highest by someone we know, are related to, are friends with, or an acquaintance. So we are, generally speaking, not very at risk for that sort of victimization.
Professor Janice wants students to know that they are not at risk and shouldn't be afraid. If you want to know more about the myths of human trafficking, Professor Janice will be hosting a panel on October 30th at the Bayou Bijou Theater at 4:30 in the afternoon. For Louisiana Focus, I'm Erinika Johnson.
It's a problem way too common these days, parking at UL. And with increased enrollment and facility construction, these issues aren't going away. As the university grows, parking on campus has become competitive. It is almost impossible to find parking spaces after certain hours, and students are screeching with rage as more tickets are issued.
There's definitely not enough room to park, and there's never any parking spots.
Parking is not ideal. It's really not set up to be functional. I feel like it's dated too.
These students are freshmen, and the class of 2022 is one of the reasons why parking spaces are rare. As Transit Operation Manager Frederick Crater explains,
demand's higher. We actually lose spaces. For instance, we have more freshmen than ever every semester. It's a new record every time.
This new student housing, which is being built, is also a part of the issue, as it has taken away 500 parking spots from the mix.
We're actually losing spaces. This semester we lost about 500 spaces because of the construction of the new residence hall or housing.
Students are paying between $40 and $300 each semester to park on campus. And since the problem has not been solved, students feel that parking should be free.
As a student, I feel like if I pay tuition, I should be able to park anywhere on campus.
It should be free, or at least built into our tuition.
One solution is to build another parking garage. A simple remedy, but also a costly one, as building another garage would cost millions.
It costs a ton to build garages, specifically like our new Girard Park Tower garage. We roughly have to make $1,500 a space a year to pay for that thing.
With the demand for parking potentially increasing future costs and the university experiencing growing pains, the Office of Parking and Transit is asking for patience, even from a restless crowd.
The cost of everything goes up, and we gotta roll with it. But in general, we work with what we got. I mean, that's all we can do.
The Raising Cajuns won their homecoming game last week, and records were broken in the process. But history was also made when it came to their homecoming court. Reporter Lee McNeil has more.
Especially coming back and being selected as the queen is truly the crown jewel on my UL experience.
After being rejected once before, Rachel Laudiker never thought that she would be this year's homecoming queen. Out of all the events that the group attended this week, there was one in particular that was the icing on the cake.
The pep rally, Yell Like Hell.
Yesterday I yelled like hell.
I'll be yell like hell. Yell like hell.
The feeling of actually being on the court sank in that very moment for Vicky Jaquette.
That was my first time, like, hey, this is really it. Like, you're really on court, and like just to have people cheering, it just gave me like a pre of how it's gonna be for the game. I'm like, oh my goodness, I love the energy, and I'm so hyped.
This painting represents 120 years of just homecoming queens. But this year, they're changing things up.
Sit sometimes contemplating like, wow, I've really done it. I've really made a mark in my community, in my university.
Dominique Williams, along with 5 other UL male students, are the first males to be on UL Lafayette's homecoming court in 120 years.
That alumni will be able to connect with us and come back and see that our university is progressive and moving forward with a male homecoming court going towards the future.
University officials say that an all-inclusive homecoming court will now and forever be a part of UL tradition. With Louisiana Focus, I'm Lee McNeil with photojournalist Kayla Thomas.
And finally, passion. For some, it requires a Hollywood relocation. For others, they find it right at home and in different phases. And in the arts, life is the best teacher. Our reporter, Iman Boyd, has more.
Honestly, it's not going to be here forever, 10, 20 years. At my uninformed estimate, I don't see this place lasting too long.
The Opelousas Little Theater is just a theater to many, but for Walter Duncan McBride, it's been a place that he's called home for over 10 years.
Everybody goes through ups and downs, and I found that, this place houses both of those things to me. The highs, the happiness of, getting engaged, starting a new life with someone, to even lows, just everyday lows, there's always seems like there's this place to help get me out of some slumps.
Walter reveals that as a young child, he was veering down the wrong path, but through theater, he was able to channel that energy into the right direction.
My tights. Or you can turn your pot upside down and use it like a squatty potty. That's a long-tail squatty potty. Don't do that in the kitchen.
The stage became his safe haven, a place where he could be a completely different person.
Always an introverted person since I was very, very small. And what I discovered with stage performance is that I didn't have to be that way. But somehow being on stage, yet hiding behind that fourth wall, which is that invisible wall between you and the crowd, there was something about it that just still kept it safe, almost like no one was watching you.
After years of performing and putting his heart and soul into theater, it was time to move up in the ranks.
I was vice president for a long time under Ed Dubuisson before I became president, and that's been about 4 or 5 years.
His first duty as president was to give the place he loved a memorable name.
I needed something to call it, and I figured Pooh would be a funny name. I actually called it Pooh before I figured out what Pooh meant, which is Preserve On-Stage Opelousas.
Now that it had a name, they needed one more thing to keep their doors from closing.
We were on hard times. We had talked about closing the place, and we needed to start a fundraising initiative.
Once they had the money, renovations began.
I'm tired of talking about it, and basically we have to insulate this building. We have to control the climate in here. We have to save the money, or we'll have to close.
The insulation process was a huge undertaking that required them to rip out all of the walls in the building and then put them right back up again.
There's basically about 100 feet of wall and about 11.5 feet tall of wall we had to insulate.
Renovations are still underway, but that isn't stopping them from putting on a show. Keeping the younger generation in the theater is what Walter believes is the key to moving forward.
It is an important thing to get the kids in here just to diversify their mind, to do things they normally wouldn't think they can do. You know, to be a hero to themselves, a hero to their family and their friends, to expand on things like it did, like theater did for me.
Even though Walter knows the theater won't be around forever, he's doing his part to keep the bodies in the seats and the talent on the stage.
You know, until there is no talent out there or the walls fall down, I promise you, I will do everything I can to keep this place going.
That's all the time we have for Louisiana Focus. Our camera operator is Jacob Phillips. Our teleprompter is Kayla Thomas. Our producer is Trey Guidry.
Our technical directors are Robert Francis and Matt Roberts, and our faculty advisors are Graduate Assistant Amy Borax and Professor Patricio Salinas. I'm Keith Simon.
And I'm Vicky Jacquette. We'll see you next time on Louisiana Focus.